Awesome. Well, hi and happy Wednesday, everyone. We're super happy to have you on tonight. We have a really wonderful training tonight. Kayla is joining us. Kayla owns Sprout Power Fitness. She specializes in gut health and hormone health and how that applies to the athlete. Kayla is also an IFBB figure pro in the NPC. Well, not NPC, it moved to IFBB.
Not
But
anymore.
anyhow, whatever, you know what I mean. So we're super
Yep.
excited to have her in. She is an avid athlete and has just some amazing value to share with you all tonight. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat on Facebook. I'll be monitoring that. If you're here on Zoom with us, you can drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand too, and we'll absolutely get those answered to you. But otherwise, without going into a whole bunch of stuff, this is Kayla. We're happy to have her, and I'm going to let her kind of take the floor and explain a little bit how the gut health and the hormones really transfer into your training.
Hey guys, so happy to be here and be with you all. It's always fun to present and talk about the stuff that I love to talk about to new faces and stuff. So I hope that some of this helps you guys out as you go forward in your fitness and health journeys. But kind of, I guess, to start out, like gut health and hormones do play a part together a lot of times. So the gut is probably one of the biggest factors of like getting healthy and everything, to make sure that your hormones are operating correctly, because we've all heard the term of like you are what you eat, but it's more so you are what you absorb. So if you're not able to absorb the food that you're eating, even if you are eating so-called healthy, it's not going to do much. We also need to make sure that things like our liver are in good condition and control, to make sure that that can take out the bad hormones and excess stuff, to get rid of that through our body. If we also are not having regular bowel movements every day, that's how we get rid of like excess waste and excess hormones as well, specifically estrogen, for a lot of you females out there. So if you're not having a regular bowel movement every day, there's something wrong. Everyone should have one. That's a big one that I have come to me a lot of times, is that, and that can honestly lead to estrogen dominance in males and females too. And that can be a hindrance, because then we have more estrogen than what we need in our body. And then that can cause some kind of serious issues as far as like bad symptoms and things like that. So that's kind of like the starting point, I guess, is making sure that your gut health is in order, and in order for your hormones to also be optimized. A lot of times too, I have clients that come to me with, when we get labs done and all their stuff looks normal or within range, but it still is not optimal. So normal does not mean optimal a lot of times. And everyone's optimal is going to look different too, person to person. And that just kind of depends on our habits, our genetics, our environment, things like that. So what we really try to do is make sure that we optimize what we need to. And I look extensively at their lab work and things like that, to make sure that we can adjust things as needed. So we make sure that there's no deficiencies in micronutrients as well. I know a lot of you guys in here are vegan, vegetarian, things like that. But what can happen there is, if we pull out a whole food group, not necessarily having to eat meat or anything like that, but protein, so to say, typically tends to be lower. When protein is lower, what can happen is our amino acids, we don't have as much, and then therefore muscle mass goes to the wayside. With eating vegan, vegetarian, typically that's carbs and fats are higher, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes, especially as we get older and we come into menopause, for example, as women, we can become more insulin resistant. So what that means is that we can ingest the carbs, but when our insulin spikes to uptake that glucose into our muscles, it actually is not working correctly. So it'll basically kind of take away, what am I trying to say here? So the insulin gets resistant and our body won't respond to it. So it keeps going higher and higher and higher. And then what can happen is it can lead to early like pre-diabetes, or even type 2 diabetes for our females out there. It can happen in guys too, just as long as we have, if we have too much carbs and not enough protein, that can definitely happen. So I guess what kind of specific issues do your clients and people in this group typically deal with?
It's always a little bit of a struggle to get protein in. So that's one of the education processes that we go through with all of the clients, is to help them identify better protein sources, and that under control is a really good way. The perimenopause is a big factor inside of this group. So the insulin factor plays into it, but then it generally has a lot of GI problems too, and there's a ton of bloating that goes on. So really working on diet's super important.
Yeah, for sure. As much as you're getting like with that too, I have a few ladies who are in perimenopause or postmenopause as well. And they have like the night flashes or hot flashes at night. So we have to also make sure that your thyroid is functioning correctly too, because that could something that can downregulate as we get older. So, and having your doctor just pull your TSH and T4 is definitely not enough. They need to pull everything. They need to pull TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, and TPO-AB, which is the thyroid antibodies. So it tests that to make sure that you don't have Hashimoto's or a chance of getting that, as that can happen with our thyroid being inflamed. So we definitely need to make sure that we're having good variety of foods. And like Clarissa said, like getting enough protein sources into is going to be crucial. And with that, specifically too, with vegan, vegetarian, a lot of that is soy based, which is like great, but at the same time, a lot of soy and excess soy, if you already are having estrogen issues, can lead to more estrogen as well. So that might not necessarily be always like the best idea, but we just want to make sure we're getting in good protein sources and enough of it throughout the day. I don't know what do you typically recommend as far as like how much protein they should shoot for?
Well, honestly, it depends on the size of the individual. So when someone's coming in as a client, we generally base it depending on their body size, anywhere between like 0.6 and 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. So still pretty high, I feel, in regards to getting the protein in. If they're older women that have gone through menopause, we generally set the target higher for a couple of reasons. Because they want to build muscle, it gets a little more challenging as we get older. Yep. And because as we get older, we start losing some of those digestive enzymes that break down the protein. So we don't necessarily.
Yeah, that was a good one to touch on too. Because we like protein is great, but we also can't go from like having like nothing to like 1 gram per pound of body weight. Cause I found a lot of times too, like you said, the digestive enzymes aren't there. So our body can't digest it. So typically what happens there is just like your stomach acid is too low, and then it just kind of sits as like a bolus in your stomach. And then it just is like really uncomfortable, causes bloating, gas, that kind of stuff. And our bodies aren't absorbing it, kind of like what I said at the beginning. So kind of, I guess some things to really make sure that you guys are also doing is taking a really good like probiotic, making sure that you're having like a good variety of foods as well, specifically like fermented foods. If you don't have any kind of like ongoing like SIBO or anything like that for gut issues, because the FODMAPs can actually inflame it more. So that's something that you really want to look at before you go into adding in other things such as that. But fermented foods are super easy, things like kimchi, could even do I don't know, some of you guys might do some like Greek yogurt. That might be one too. Also protein source. But I know it's dairy, so kind of depends if you're vegan or not. But then let's see, other ones are pickles. I know that's a really good one, super easy to do. Pickles add really good. You just want to make sure you have those in there, because what it does is it puts good bugs like bacteria into your digestion, and then that's going to break down the food, bring up your stomach acidity, break down your food better, absorb it that much better. So definitely we'll be able to help out there.
Yeah, getting the good bacteria back into the digestive tract really can help with the gas and bloating, especially the bloating that's associated with perimenopause for sure. Yeah. So some of the foods that we recommend are the kimchi, we do sauerkraut, and the pickles.
Yes,
pickled beets are really good if you like those. And what's it called? Kombucha.
Yes, kombucha. I completely forgot about that one too. But yeah, anything like fermented like that is a really good idea to add in there. Obviously, you don't want too much, everything in moderation, of course, because too much can kind of lead to inflammation, things like that. So for you guys too, with like your fats that you're ingesting too, you really want to make sure that you're taking in a proper amount of like omega-3s. That can be really hard being on a vegan vegetarian diet. A lot of that can end up being like omega-6s and like saturated fats. So things like making sure that you're having good oil, like olive oil, macadamia nut oil. I like to recommend avocado oil. That's really good as well. But you could also supplement too with some they do make vegan like fish oils, so to say.
Yep, they're algae oils.
Yes. Yep. I have a client who takes that as well because she tends to get like, she's not vegan, but she tends to get a little like burpy from it, and other people might.
They're so awesome.
Yeah. And she works so much better. She actually is one of my menopausal women, and she's like reduced night sweats a lot just by improving her gut health and making sure too that like stress management is under control. Like I know like that as like a woman and aging and stuff can like really be detrimental because stress is like literally the killer of everything as far as that goes. So got to manage your stress, take the time for you to make sure that you're getting enough rest and sleep, things like that. Yeah.
Does how much do you feel that stress affects the GI system?
Oh, a lot, for sure. I mean, the whole thing about having like gut feelings is definitely a thing, because our gut and our brain, you guys, like it talks back and forth. They have a whole nervous system that's just within our gut that speaks to our brain. And a lot of times, like what's happening in your gut, 90% of that is sent to the brain versus like the brain being sent to the gut. So kind of like if you are experiencing like anxiety or something like that, or feeling stressful or upset about something, like you will definitely feel it in your gut because like, you know, you get the little butterflies or like you have to go to the bathroom or things like that. That is like an actual thing. And it's from like your brain because your brain is processing things a certain way and it's sending it through via like the vagus nerve to your gut. And then that's how the gut happens. So with stress and stuff, that increases cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. And when that is too high, basically what happens is that shuts down the rest of our digestive system because it goes into fight or flight mode. So even if it's kind of like you're not super stressed, like running away from a lion, for example, this cortisol was made for increasing our adrenaline, upping that for fight or flight response. Nowadays, we don't have to run from lions, obviously, but you know, we are sitting in chronic stress where it's just constantly up here all the time, and we're never coming back down from that. So what happens is that shuts off everything that's not needed to survive. So that would be like reproductive system. So there goes your sex hormones, any kind of things like feeling good, like testosterone, your libido drops. And this is like chronically over time. This isn't like acute. But all of that is going to shut off because it's not meant for survival. Same thing with digestion. Digestion shuts off as well. So you might have like, you know, some people get like diarrhea, for example, when they get nervous, but that's just kind of like your body saying like, oh, okay, we need to like get rid of everything. But it like shuts down. So like your body won't digest food. And then, you know, a lot of times people don't really feel hungry, shuts down that hunger signals. But then once you do come down off of that like extremely stressful situation and stuff, you might find that you feel like very, like all of a sudden, like you're like, man, I'm like really hungry. And like, I just want to eat everything now because it's, those signals come back down and the hunger signals go up and it kind of like flip flops. And then our blood sugar spikes. We start to eat those or like go binge, for example. And then all of a sudden our blood sugar spikes. We can't sleep very well at night. We get like hot and sweaty because now our blood sugar is really high, insulin's going off. And then it's hard to come back down from that and get good sleep. And then bad sleep rolls into that cycle again and again. So it just kind of keeps rolling on like that. So it can kind of be a really bad cycle if that's how stress can affect it. Like stress is huge. That's like one thing we really work on a lot with our clients is managing stress for sure, and perceived stress. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, same. It's huge. So with working with the gut health, stress from training 5 and 6 and 7 days a week. That's also stress. So
yes, 100%.
So even though maybe you don't have like the extreme sensations, like you don't maybe not be nauseous or you may not have diarrhea, it still is producing the same hormonal response inside the body.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Like I know a lot of people like to go to the gym to like let off steam and stuff like that. And like it's their escape. Like it was for me too. But at the same time, it also became my escape in like a bad way, like so it was where I went to too much and stuff. So like more is not always better because it is a physical stressor, and that same thing is still going to happen within our bodies. As much as you might mentally like feel better by the end of the day, you're still like, if your body can't digest things, if it can't absorb nutrients and stuff, you're still not going to get the benefit of that training session, especially if you're doing like 6-7 days a week. Like I've seen stuff like that, or like 2-a-days all the time, and eating, even 1,600 calories. Like you should probably be eating around 2,000 calories. That's kind of the goal for everybody. I think a lot of people get the misconception that like they need to drop their calories more and increase cardio and do all the things in order to lose weight. And like, yeah, it might work for a little bit, but then like our bodies are going to get really stressed. We're going to stop sleeping better. And everything's just going to kind of go out of control. And then we get into what's called like metabolic chaos. And that can downregulate hormones. Gut health can go to crap, inflammation, things like that. And then guess what? Progress stalls, or it even goes backwards. And you're just like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? I'm doing everything right, but like, why can't I make progress and stuff? So sometimes like I like to tell my clients like less is more.
Mm-hmm. It is. And it's crazy when you're doing all that work and you see things go backwards. It's like mind blowing, and you feel just so completely stuck and frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. Like I tend to see this go on. Like I think what happens is people get into like this cycle and they see progress right away, and then it goes too long. And too long is in more than probably 4 months. I would say 16 weeks would probably be the most for like a general person trying to just lose weight. Because I think a lot of people get the misconception that you do like a diet one time and then you like drop all this weight and then it just stays off. And that's not how it happens. We have to go through nutrition cycling just like we do with like training and stuff to make sure that we're getting, cut down our macros and stuff, or our food down a little bit, lose some weight. And then we need to reverse back up and work our bodies up to make sure that we have that body fat set point lower. And we do take care of our hormones and we're feeding our bodies correctly to make sure that we keep making continuous progress. So our body weight might change a little bit too. We might go down and then come up a little bit and then go down a little bit more, but overall it should be trending down, and your body fat set point will be getting less and less and less for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it takes time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people, especially if you start having like gut health issues or hormone issues, just understand it's going to take time. Like it's so frustrating. And like, I had to go through that, 2020, I had to go through a whole like metabolic compensation, cause my hormones were just in the tank. I had like no sex hormones cause I was just stressed, overworked, overtraining, not eating enough, all of the above. And I didn't know it. And I thought I was doing everything right. I was like, oh, cause I'm a very small person. I'm only like 4'9" and like 100, I was like 115 pounds. And I was like, oh, I only need to eat 1,600 calories. And I definitely needed more than that for how much I was training. Cause I also was doing powerlifting, and that was like 6 days a week of hard training on your central nervous system. So definitely did wrong there. And so now that's why I come back and like learned about all this to like teach everybody else and help other people, because that was probably the hardest thing I've gone through, like harder than like this last year's prep. I prepped for like 7 months. But honestly, I was eating more during that prep than I was in my off seasons previously because I was healthy. But it took about 6 months to kind of come back from all of that hormone dysregulation. And like, for example, getting my period back, I didn't have it for like 3 years, I don't think. So yeah, it took a long time. And part of that was from birth control. So there's that as well. The misconceptions about that, but that's a whole nother topic. don't want to go on a rant on that for sure. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And that's kind of the cool thing too, is like everyone is so different and everyone has their own unique background and the way that they're going to respond to things. And so that's why it's so important that there's not like a one size fits all approach, you know.
Oh yeah, I wish way more people would realize that.
Yep. Yep. I think that is now, especially like the gut health is becoming more and more commonplace, because a lot of coaches are now realizing that like, oh, guess what? Like just cutting calories and adding cardio is not going to make sustainable results. So, which is great at the same time, but now like everyone's doing it and may not be doing it 100% correctly. So yeah, there's a lot of information out there. It's just a matter of like how to digest it, literally, and how to how to like go about like what's right for you. So, you know, that's why we're here.
No, exactly. Yeah, so what's right for you may not be right for, your neighbor or even your sister. So no kidding. Yeah. So I don't see any questions that we have in the chat on Facebook. There are people on Facebook, so that's awesome. I was going to ask, so one trend that I do see a lot of is pretty heavy fat restriction in a lot of the plant-based diets. And fat's vital for hormone production.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, with that, fats are like going to be super important. Should you like jump your fats way up super high? No. Also like the type of fat that you eat is very important as well. Like I said, earlier I kind of touched on like omega-3s. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 is pro-inflammatory. So we do need a good balance of both of them, because for like the pro-inflammatory omega-6s, that's going to be more so like if you hurt yourself or injure yourself, that's going to cause the inflammation to help heal that part. But then the anti-inflammatory is kind of also needed because like if we have an infection or something like that, it needs to bring that back down. So, but with the typical American diet, what can happen is the omega-6 is like way too high. And then we're just too much inflamed. And then that causes systemic inflammation, which causes gut health issues, things like that. So that's why we need to have like good fats too. Fats come as cholesterol. So a lot of people are afraid of cholesterol as like, oh, cholesterol is bad. Like I need it to be as low as possible. No, your body needs cholesterol because that's going to be where hormones are derived from. That's where all hormones start, as fats, especially as like menopausal females too. That's going to be a big one. So I actually put my fats a little bit higher for those ladies. Because I want to make sure that they're getting as much hormone production as possible. Because at that time, when they're at that age, it's going to be downregulated no matter what. So even looking into like HRT and stuff like that too could be an option as well. But we try to maximize that as much as we can naturally first.
Yeah, there's a lot that we can do with diet, and we do generally take that approach first. And then it's like referring out to the nurse practitioner we work with for hormone health is like the last step.
Yep, 100%. Like I think the biggest takeaway, I guess, is like don't ever turn to like just like a pill or a supplement to like fix all the problems, because most of the time it can be fixed with proper like nutrition, sleep, stress management, and getting like regular exercise, but not over exercising. I think especially with females, it can very easily over exercise because of just like the social norms and things like that. And it just kind of gets to be a little out of hand. And like these like high intensity like HIIT classes are like super popular. Like, you know, if you go to Orange Theory, I'm sorry, but not sorry at the same time, but like don't go every single day of the week. Like those are just way too hard on your body and stuff. And like, yeah, you might feel like, yeah, awesome. I like killed it for 45 minutes, but like a HIIT session should really only last like no more than 20 minutes. And that should be good because it's just very hard on your central nervous system. And that again, cortisol goes up and then everything else just goes to the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we have a question. What is a recommended amount of fermented items, and how often should we include these?
I guess there's not really a specific like recommended amount. I would say if you don't have any in your in your diet right now, slowly introduce them, because they can cause a little bit of like indigestion, and only do like one at a time too, because then you know if you have like a reaction to it of some sort, as in like you just might be a little bit gassy or things like that. So I would try to just start with one thing, once or twice a day. And then if you don't feel anything like that for like a week, go to like add some more as you would like them. I would just try to like stay away. If you're eating like 5 meals a day, don't have something fermented with 5 meals. That's kind of going to be a lot of extra in your system. So it might be a little bit too much, but yeah, start small, work your way up, one thing at a time. Always adjust one variable, because that's going to be the best way to make sure that you don't have like a bad reaction. So I like to look at it as like a science experiment. If you adjust one variable, then if something changes, you know what it is. Otherwise, if you change too much at once, you have no idea what's causing an issue.
Right. It's absolutely true.
Good question.
Yeah, normally when we have people adding the fermented things, we work up to 3, and we want them to be like from different sources.
Yep.
Eventually for the different strains of probiotic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm not seeing any other questions. We'll hang out here for another minute or so, and then we'll let you get on with your evening, because I know you have things to do. But
I have a puppy who is actually sleeping finally. Yes. I just got a puppy last week. So we've been wanting one for a while, and she is like just the cutest thing ever. But when she's not sleeping, she's very loud. So lucky there.
Yeah. No, it's just like a baby.
Oh my gosh, yes. 100%. That's why we were like, let's get a puppy first. Before we go do anything else. Yes. We have 2 cats, but they're pretty simple. But now we have a puppy, and she's literally like a toddler. So, but it's fine. It keeps you busy, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, I don't see anything else come through, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kayla. It was great. I think you supplied a lot of information. I know that we haven't talked about fermented things in the group at all before, so that was fantastic. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah, otherwise, thanks for joining us, and I know we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed it.
I'm sure. Thank you.
All right. Bye.